Welcome to Uncopyable Women in Business. I'm Kay Miller, also known as Muffler Mama. I've been the #1 salesperson in a male-dominated industry, a successful entrepreneur for over 30 years, and now my mission is to help you build a business and brand nobody else can compete with. If you're ready to break out of the pack and create your own uncopyable advantage, stay tuned. My guests and I are here to help. Known as the First Lady of Sales, Dr. Cindy McGovern is a global expert in sales, leadership, and communication. A Wall Street Journal best-selling author, she believes that every job is a sales job and that to succeed in sales and business, you need to sell yourself first. Cindy is the CEO of Orange Leaf Consulting and has helped hundreds of companies grow by showing people how to embrace their inner 5-year-old and take the ick out of selling. Cindy, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Kay. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, we've had fun chatting. I should call you Dr. Cindy. I know that you go by Dr. Cindy. And I think that's cool. You are a doctor, in fact, right?
I am PhD in communication. So I guess that's true.
All that hard work, you earned the title Dr. Cindy. So I really respect you for that too. And I can't wait to hear more about what you think and how you see sales. And of course, I've read both of your books. If you're watching, you can see them in the background. I guess one is a little bit out of the picture, but every job is a sales job. Yes, it totally is. As I told Dr. Cindy, I even called this podcast at first, Uncopyable Women in Sales. But not everyone sees it that way. So it's this is your chance, Dr. Cindy, to convince my audience otherwise. And then, of course, sell yourself, because ultimately that's what you're always selling. So I'll let you take it away and tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are.
So funny enough, the first book came out of the fact that I never wanted to be in sales. So I was very much like your audience saying, but I'm not in a sales role. So what does that have to do with me? And the truth of the matter is every job really is a sales job. And I wish somebody had taught me that back in high school. I was a college professor and I was teaching communication, went into consulting full time. And about 6 months into that job, got put into a sales role and thought I was going to get fired.
He was didn't like that. You weren't ready for that, right? You didn't want to.
No. And because I thought sales was icky. I thought it was pushy and manipulative and cheesy and icky, slimy, all the things, right? Probably everything that every person listening to podcasts thought sales was. And it's not. I realized I'd been selling my entire life. I just didn't call it sales. I called it helping or, supporting somebody or lending a hand. And when I realized that, I thought, why didn't anybody tell me this? I didn't know sales could be like that. If I had known that, I would have gone into sales. I would have chosen that. But I didn't know that was an option. And so that's really what led me to this path of really writing books and trying to help people to realize that they're selling every day. They just don't know it. And if they did understand that that is sales and they did it more purposefully, they could reach their goals faster, more easily, and they could help more people.
Yeah, and have a lot more fun, right?
Gosh, yes, absolutely.
And I think the best thing in the world is when a customer thanks you. And right before we got on air, you sold me on something. And I said, I am so grateful. I've thought about this for so long, and something about the way you said it. And of course, you're going to want to know, and that is to use social media more. And Dr. Cindy does a Walk With Me Wednesdays. Did I say that right?
Walk to Work Wednesdays.
And she just talks very naturally to the camera. It's like unscripted and she said she's had so many opportunities come to her that way, some incredible stories. We probably don't have time to talk about all of them. But if you think of selling as helping, it just flips the script, as they say. And yes, we've all had really bad experiences with salespeople and we don't want to buy that way. So of course our customers don't either. So you were teaching as a professor, then you fell into sales, as they say. And what happened then?
So in that role, that's when I really started to realize this is a life skill. It's not just a business skill. And so I left that role. I started my own company 17 years ago, and that's where Orange Leaf Consulting came in. And I started writing books that I wish somebody had handed me long ago. So that was where every job as a sales job came in. And then I realized that I needed another book to help people realize that they're selling themselves. And a lot of times people are selling themselves short because they don't share their accomplishments. They don't let people know what they're working on or what they want. And people can't help you if they don't realize it. And I hear a lot of people say, well, my work speaks for itself. No, it doesn't. Like, it really doesn't. We live in such a distracted world, such a distracted society. And people say, well, I don't want to brag. I don't want to do this. It's not bragging. You have to think about, we're not just competing for people's, support. We're competing for their attention. Think about everybody in the grocery line. They're all looking at their phones. Nobody's even paying attention to what's in each other's carts anymore.
Right.
So
I forgot about that.
Right?
You can't.
We don't anymore. And so I wanted to give people tools to be able to, again, reach their goals, help more people, have more fun. And so that's where the second book came in, is Sell Yourself, and really that personal brand and creating that brand so that people know not only how you can help them, but how they can help you. And so it just keeps snowballing from there and finding more ways to impact more lives. And then I started an online academy a few years ago, Orange Leaf Academy. So just trying to find more ways to reach more people to help them.
And by the way, I'll have all these links in the show notes because we'll probably talk about links. Don't worry, you'll be able to find them. Your Sell Yourself book is so similar to our Uncopyable You branding book, personal branding book. And one point that we talk about in the book too, or I talk about a lot, is that a lot of us are selling the same things. Products and services can be copied, commoditized. You might be selling the exact same thing. If you're in network marketing, you're selling the same thing someone else is. So your personal brand is what separates you. And Dr. Cindy and I were talking about, you have a personal brand, whether you like it or not. So it really pays to pay attention to that brand, follow both of the advice in both books, get all of our books, and take the time to build a brand that you're proud of, that resonates with who you really are. And it will then with your customers too. So I think that I know part of this, but why do people have a negative impression of sales?
We kind of go to the lowest common denominator of anything, right? So movies and TV feed us that. And so if you think about sales, we think of, sadly, like a used car salesperson, because that's the caricature that we're fed. But when we think about sales, we are sold something every day. Your barista in the morning when you buy your coffee, when you go downstairs and get a sandwich at your office, you're being sold. When you're at the grocery store and the person takes you down the aisle to find the ketchup, when you're at the department store, when that person's checking you out, when you're the Girl Scout cookies, when you're like, we are literally sold all day, every day in every interaction. When you make eye contact with the person at your building who's holding the door open because your arms are full, that was a nonverbal sale, but we don't think about that as sales. So there are so many sales interactions in a day that we don't consider as sales because we don't have that definition of it. We just think of it as interpersonal communication. That's it. So when you start framing it differently, you start to realize that there are these transactions we go through every single day, and you can get more of what you want if you really think about it and you have a better plan for it. But it's that negative connotation that we think of, oh, sales is this thing that happens over here, and then my day happens around it. And it's not true. And I also believe that because you know that negative connotation and because you don't want that, you're never going to be that. Because people say, well, I can't be that. You're not going to, because you know that, you're aware of it. So you don't worry about that. You're never going to fall into that trap because you already have that self-awareness around it.
I've never had anyone bring that up, that, people are afraid of being too salesy or pushy, that the people that are salesy and pushy probably they don't care. They don't say, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be slimy. Maybe they're not saying they want you, but they're not putting the thought into it. So the point you just made is just being aware, knowing yourself, what's important to you will save you from becoming that kind of salesperson that, number one, you don't like, and number two, doesn't work. Because even if that type of person makes a sale once with you, they will never sell you again.
Because they're not trustworthy at the end of the day.
And trust is really, like no one trust, everyone says that, but trust, wouldn't you say, is the greatest of these?
And no sale is going to happen without trust. That's really all it boils down to. You go through a trust exercise before you buy a product, before you buy a service. And so I mean, even when you walk into a restaurant, you trust that you're not going to get sick by the smell, by the look. And if you don't trust it, you walk out. And you don't think about that as a trust exercise, but it is. And so you think about it when you walk into a hotel. You walk into a hotel, you get an icky feeling, you walk out. That was a trust exercise. So every sale has a trust element to it, or else it doesn't happen.
Right. And so our book, Uncopyable You, we talk about like, know, trust, and remember. And that's very important too, because you want to be on the mind of your prospect when they're ready to buy. But I do feel like you have to have trust. So if you have the like, know, and remember, that's your real competitive advantage, because trust is kind of like the bar, the lowest bar, which you have to have. But then everything beyond that, as Dr. Cindy, your personality, your energy, every interaction we've had, you've just been so high energy, positive. You're adorable. I shouldn't say that. It doesn't sound very professional. You're adorable. And when we first got on the call, you had something very helpful for me, as I just talked about. So, your true character. People are drawn to people like you and hopefully me, and not drawn to the people that are the icky kind of salespeople. So it just doesn't make sense all the way around. So why don't you tell us how would you define personal brand? And are there any tips that you can help the listeners, what we can do to intentionally create that brand?
Yeah. So, I think the brand is really what people are going to say about you when you're not there. So it's how they're going to describe you. And it's not just the descriptive words, but it's the impression that you're leaving behind. So it's the the impact that you're having on them. Not that you're nice, but it's what you did for them, what your nice personality did for them. What was the impact of it? Because it's really easy to say, oh, she's really honest, or she's a hard worker. That's not it. It's what the hard work did. Oh my God, she saved my bacon. She really made a huge impact on my life because she mentored me. And this is what she did. They have to have a story about you. And that's really where your personal brand comes to life, is the impact that you're making on other people. And so that's what I think about as a personal brand. And the way that you really, and that's why I say you create, live, and sell it. You have to create it and be really intentional about how you want the world to view you. And this is where I think a lot of people kind of mess up on their personal brand, because we think about it from 9 to 5. We don't think about it from 5 to 9. And it is very, very important, especially in today's day and age of social media and videos and snapping photos and everything.
You might be in the background of
100%. You have to be very aware.
Michael Phelps got in trouble with that years ago. Remember that? We were talking about the Olympics.
Yeah. And you have to just be really mindful that your brand is on 24/7, whether you're realizing it or not. And so recognizing that. And the other thing too is recognizing that what you do today impacts your brand tomorrow. If you're awake tonight watching, streaming till 2 a.m. and you have a 7 a.m. video call, you're going to look sleepy. And so is that really the brand that you want to show up as? Be mindful of that. People tease me because people always say, are you ever not Dr. Cindy? And I'm like, no, because if I have a 5 a.m. flight, I'm going to be like this. If I'm leaving my house, you're going to see me like this. And it's purposeful. So you've got to create it, and you've got to have a brand that you can create and maintain. And if you're, as we say in the South, a little big for your britches, you're not going to be able to maintain that. So it really needs to be you. It needs to be authentic. It needs to be something that you can maintain and sustain. And then you live it every day, all day, every day. Everything you don't do. A lot of times people wreck their brand and the things that they don't follow through on, believe it or not. And so it can't be something
that's trust, right?
Yeah, it is. And I talk about this in the book, where there's a radio announcer that he talks about him plus 10%. And when he can't be the extra 10%, he just stays home. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I get that. When you can't give that extra little bit, stay home, give yourself some rest. And sometimes rest is part of living your best brand. And then you got to sell it. You got to be proactive. And that's the other thing that I think a lot of people sell themselves short, is they're not seeking the opportunities. And that's where the sales part comes in. And that's where everybody on listening to the podcast today just said ick, of course. They said, oh, I was okay until she said that, But it's true. We have to find those opportunities to elevate it. When your friend says they're having a party and you're great at crafts, raise your hand and say you can help. If your friend is looking for a business coach and you're a business coach, raise your hand and say that's what you do. But if they don't know how you can help them and they don't know how you can make an impact, they don't know that you're the person to call on. And that's where we have to be selling ourselves so they know what resource you are.
Hey there. This podcast is meant to give you an uncopyable advantage. If you're ready to jump on the fast track, go to beuncopyable.com/K. You'll get the scoop on my books, webinars, personal consulting, and our Moose Market. It's all designed to help you stand out, sell more, grow your business and brand in a way that's truly uncopyable. Once again, that's beuncopyable.com/K. Now, back to the show. So much of this is in your books. I loved both of your books. You've got a great framework for sales. And then you've got so many, all of this stuff and more that we're talking about. I like the way you described your own brand in Sell Yourself First, and how, like you said, you are, I think nice was one of your in your little whatever packet of who Dr. Cindy is, but it's not, it fits into a bigger picture. Can you do a better job than I am of explaining that?
Sure. So I say that I'm kind, but I'm not nice.
Okay, that's right. Kind, but not nice.
And it's that I am kind and I'm going to be a kind human. I'm going to do the right thing, but I'm not going to be nice for no reason. And, if your baby's ugly, I'm going to tell you kind of a thing. And it's because I'm not going to do you any favors by just being nice to blow smoke. And I'm going to do the kind thing by telling you the truth, even if it does hurt. And I do this with my coaching clients. I do this with my consulting clients. And we're kind of known as the consulting company that if your baby's ugly, we tell you. And that's why I said that, because our clients will say, gosh, you really don't pull any punches. And I'm like, that's why you hired us. Mm-hmm. That's why you wanted us to come in, is to shine the flashlight in the corners and tell you where your blind spots are. I'm not here to tell you how pretty you look. I'm here to tell you where you're missing the mark. And I'm going to tell you how to fix it. That's where I'm kind. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you you're the best singer on the planet and send you out to audition for one of those shows and they're going to use you as the outtakes. It's not how this works.
So I have to tell you a story about my daughter. And this was somebody, a friend of hers. And I said something about, she's so nice. She's so nice. And Kelly, my daughter, said, well, Mom, I'm nice too. And I said, you're not that nice. I said, but that's good. You don't want to be too nice. Can be a pushover, or too nice can be, as you said, you don't want a nice consultant coming in and telling you what you want to hear. You want, you don't want to be the yes man or the yes woman. So I like the kind versus nice, because yes, my daughter is very kind. Is she nice? Yeah.
Kinda, yeah. And that's it. Hey.
I'm like, good for you. Good for you. And then even one of her employees, she said recently, you're really nice, Kelly, but you don't take no bleep. So that's another way to put it too. I think
right.
It's all a balance. So what should we talk about? I wanted to talk about, you have a great framework, as I said, about sales strategies. So do you have any specifics for people listening that they can try it in their life or their business? And we talked about every job is a sales job. Every job interview is absolutely a sales job, right? Who hasn't done a job interview? So we all have to sell ourselves. But so tell us, do you have any specifics?
Yeah. So one of the things I talk about in both my books actually is sort of a 5-step framework for sales that everybody can use regardless of whether you're in a sales role or not. And the first thing is you got to have a good plan in place. So even if it's a job interview, you get a plan. You want this job. You do your research, you figure out what they need, you look at the company, you look at their career progression, you do your research and your homework and you figure out, okay, here's my game plan. Then you look for opportunities in the conversation, the opportunity to highlight some of the things that you can bring to the table, the impact that you can make on the organization. Keep your eyes open, because the opportunities present themselves. A lot of times though, if you're not clear on your plan and your intention, you miss them. And you'll see them later. So what happens is you recognize it after the fact. I should have said something. Oh man, I should have brought this up. That's because you didn't have a good plan in place. Third thing is you got to listen. You got to listen to what other people are saying, because that's where you're going to actually establish trust with them. And a lot of times it's to give to get first, right? You give it out, comes back to you. I totally believe in karma. I give a lot away first and then ask. And this is where most, even, this case, seasoned salespeople fall down. They don't ask. They go all the way to the, 1 yard line and they leave the ball right there. They just set it down so nicely on the 1 yard line. They go, I'm just going to leave this right here and wave at you and walk away. And I always giggle, even with salespeople that I'm coaching. I'm like, so did you just expect them to just start handing money across the table? I'm like, well, they know why I'm there. And I always laugh and I go, but do they? Do they know why you're there? Did you actually ask? So one of the examples I use is I ask married people, did someone ask someone a question at some point? Somebody asked somebody to marry them, right?
Right.
Y'all didn't just show up at the
Right.
courthouse and say, today's a good day.
No.
Or show up at the church. Somebody asked somebody a question because there was a commitment that had to be made before the relationship went on. So if you want this relationship to begin, you have to ask a question to gain the commitment. At 1 yard line, there has to be a question. So make sure you ask for their help. You solicit a response. And then you follow up. So like you said, having that top of mind and making sure you're following up whether the answer is yes or no, doesn't matter. Making sure you stay top of mind because even the no's can sometimes be a really good referral sources.
Or they could turn into a yes, although, to me, I think you said no, yes, or maybe are all okay to hear. Did you say that?
Absolutely. And a maybe is a no, and that's okay.
And I like one thing especially that you said, and when you said you're planning and you're looking for opportunities, and this is so interesting that you phrased it like this, and you're looking for what you can bring to the table. How different that sounds than looking for a way to sell them, to get the order, to get them to buy, even to find out what do you bring to the table. That encompasses all of that. Put yourself in their shoes, think of what they face, their life, their challenges, their goals, their dreams, all of that. When you say, what can I bring to the table? That to me sums a lot of that up. Do you agree?
And that's the whole
You said
point,
it, so you must
add value. Yeah. If you can't add value, you're not at that table then. If you can't bring something to make that impact, you're at the wrong table. And that's okay. You're not going to be a fit for everybody. And that's all right. But it's to find the ones where you are the absolute thing that they need in that moment. And when you're not, it's okay to walk away because otherwise then you start pushing and pitching and nobody wants that. That's when you become the icky part. You don't want that.
That's right. And you know all about our moose theory that, you find the very best prospects. And sometimes those prospects are your current customers. I think a lot of salespeople overlook the fact that your current customers have always already said yes. They trust you. You have a relationship. And don't forget that you can add more value for them. You can help them sell more and you can get more sales too. I still remember one of my first sales jobs. Actually, it was my first outside sales job. And they had a line of products that was not selling in their customers, in their retailers. So I went out and all the displays looked like crap, really. So I made this plan to go around and fix all their displays because who would want to buy from something that looked that bad? So their sales immediately started going up. And backstory, had been talking about wanting to go to Europe. And when that project was done, they called me in there and they gave me a plane ticket to Europe because they were so grateful. So does that sound like ick?
That's huge. That's huge. I love that. What a great story.
Because stories, as you said, and you're really good with that in your book too. Talk about that, how just telling someone what you can bring to the table or whatever versus explaining or showing them with stories and examples. How powerful is that?
Well, it's story selling, right? That's what we do. And that's how we learn as human beings. When we think about how we learned as children, we were taught everything, even how to tie your shoes through stories. So, the money goes around the tree. That's right. What we learn.
Wait, I faintly remember that.
Right? But when you think about it, it's through fables. That's literally how we're learning lessons. And that's how things are taught through generations. And that's where people hold on to it because you learn the explanation of it. Whereas if you just learn facts, it's lists. It's harder to hold on to. But when you have an explanation, when you have characters, you have something to grasp, it makes a bigger impression. And we just stored in our long-term memory differently. And so I think when you can have that impact, and it's funny, in my first book, I tell a story, not a great story, of a customer experience where my husband had bought me a piece of jewelry and it was a not good customer experience. And I have so many people that come up to me and they're like, oh my gosh, did you just want to cry when that happened? And I'm like, it was awful. It was an awful experience. And I don't name the store. People guess it and they try to guess. But everybody feels it because you paint the picture. Everybody feels that gut punch. If I told you, here are the 5 things that this company did wrong, you don't feel the gut punch. When I paint the picture for you and I tell you how the encounter happened and I tell you how my emotions bubbled over, and the look on my husband's face and the look on my face and the look on the salesperson's face, you see it, you feel it, you've been there in my shoes, you've been in my husband's shoes, you know it. You are there with me in the store in New York City. You're right there. That is how you leave a lasting impression. And I think that's what we strive for, is that human experience. We're pack animals at the end of the day. So we want to feel it with you. And that's really what story selling does.
That's a great example. And I think on some level, we probably all have heard these things, maybe even know these things, but don't put them into action. So the story you just told was so powerful. I will remember that. I think everyone listening will remember that story. And you're exactly right. You know, we need to really dig into our own experiences. I keep saying the word experiences. And as far as personal brand, you also told me some stories before we got on the call, because your grandmother lived very close to Seattle area where I live. And I learned a lot about you just in the way you talked about your grandmother, what kind of person you were, how you valued that relationship, how she'd take you to Mount Rainier and the squirrels would eat out of your hands, or the chipmunks with chipmunks, just pieces of yourself. And it wasn't anything, I mean, the furthest thing you could think of from bragging or boasting, but it was a connection. You found, okay, you live here, you know, this area. That was really pretty brilliant connecting with you. So kudos to you. You got to get Dr. Cindy's books. You do. And I know you do a lot of speaking, and you, like you said, you have your academy, which is all online, super accessible for everyone. Do you want to talk about that for a sec?
Yeah. So it's, my whole goal in life is just to help people to recognize that sales is a life skill and give them as many tools as I can. So a few years ago, I launched Orange Leaf Academy to do just that, to give them more ways to get tools and resources. And so we launch courses every year. We're launching 3 more this year, and just ways to learn more sales skills and apply them in your everyday life as well as your job to get more of what you want. And so we're launching another one on personal branding. We're launching one on strategic planning, and we're going to be launching one on customer experience as well.
I will, again, have all of those links in the show notes. You kind of said Orange Leaf Consulting fast. So I want to say it's Orange Leaf Consulting, operative word being orange, because all this orange, her books are orange, just like ours. I'm wearing orange. Well, you're not wearing orange, but you got a lot of orange in your background. Oh, you are wearing orange. You are wearing orange. She's wearing an orange camisole. You better look at the YouTube video now so you can see how, because I already said you're adorable wearing orange. And also I'm wearing orange.
Gotta go our branding. See, Kay, we got it.
It is. I never do a show, and I'm sure you don't either, without, or a speech. I know you do a lot of speaking without the orange. So, well, I'm sure anyone listening to this can tell we've had a great time. It's been
so fun.
We are on the same page on a lot of things. So that's wonderful. And I really am grateful. And it was Jack Hubbard that connected us.
He's so great.
So Jack Hubbard is a great connector, a great supporter, a great fan, somebody to have in your corner. So thank you very much, Jack. And thank you, Dr. Cindy. It's been wonderful. My audience is going to love everything that you've had to say and get so much value out of it. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Kay. I love all the orange, and thank you so much for the message that you share with the world. And I cannot wait to see what you do next as well. I'm such a pleasure to be here today.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Uncopyable Women in Business. If you enjoyed it, please follow, rate, and review the show. And be sure to visit beuncopyable.com/K. Always remember, be uncopyable.